I was pretty surprised to find out that a 2019 Toyota Tundra Platinum trim didn't come from the factory with remote start. Remote start's been around for long enough on trucks. In fact, I think my 2013 Ram 1500 had it from the factory. I was also surprised to hear that the Tundra didn't come with keyless entry on the tailgate. That's another story. But I recently came across a new product from iDatastart that piqued my interest while I was researching remote starters for this Tundra, and I decided to try it out. I've worked and reviewed their remote starts in the past, and I was happy with the features and overall product, so I knew this was a safe system. So today I have iDatastart's HC4.5. This is an all-in-one two-way LCD remote car starter kit. It's a two remote system, meaning it has a primary, that's the LCD remote here, and it also has a backup if you lose that primary remote. It's compatible with a ton of vehicles and has a lot of cool features that I'll get into in this review, and I'll also install this system in a 2019 Toyota Tundra. You can also see a couple other components here. The TL5 on the right. This is the necessary T-harness that's designed for 2010 plus Toyotas right now. So perfect for the 2019 Tundra that it's going to go in, along with many other Toyota Tundras and Toyotas in general. These harnesses are obviously vehicle specific, but these harnesses are also what makes this system compatible with hundreds of vehicles. So if you're curious if this system, the HC4.5, is compatible with your vehicle, be sure to go on to iDatastart's website, type in your year, make, and model and trim, and it's going to tell you if they have a harness and if it's compatible with your vehicle. And then in the middle here, you also see this Drone X1. This is a GPS module, an LTE GPS module, which means that it has and hooks up to signal. And what this will do is actually make this system, many of the features of the HC4.5, accessible directly on a mobile app on your phone. So I'll be going through the features and functionality of this unit as well. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Now, before I get started, it's worth noting that this video isn't a tutorial. I wouldn't use it as an installation guide or a tutorial, but I like to give insight into the ease of installation on most of the products that I review. It also enables me to give you more context and a rundown of the features live and tell you what I think about them. So the first thing I'm going to do for you is unbox everything and lay these components out on the table so you can see what this system comes with, and so that I can start talking you through the components and how they all play together. So let's get started with that first. I'm going to unbox the HC4.5. All right, so let's talk about what you're seeing on the table here, starting with the most obvious, the remotes, which are here on the top. The HC4.5 comes with two long-range, two-way remotes right here, Two-way meaning they talk to your car and your car talks back. iDatastart claims that these remotes are both functional up to 6,000 feet, which is right around a mile. I'm sure that terrain, buildings, and other factors might have an impact on the range, but pretty solid range rating. The remote here on the left is your primary remote. Pull it out. This is their TR4650A model. You can see it comes with a protective film, and it features an LCD screen which is underneath this that'll show you all sorts of information about your car. Shock detection, whether your doors are open, if your trunk or hood is open, if the alarm's going off, if ignition is detected, and so on. The remote also has vibration, so it'll notify you if things like the shock detection or the car alarm went off, and it'll vibrate in your pocket or wherever it is. The remote also has 5 different buttons here. The most obvious are on the front, the lock and the unlock button. On the side, it has 3 others. You have, I think, a function or like a menu button. I think it's also used to turn on and off the remote. You have your trunk, and then what I think here is an informational button. You click it and it'll display information of the vehicle on the remote, but it can also be used to trigger valet mode. These buttons here, all of them, they can be used in conjunction or in sequence to trigger a variety of commands. So for example, if you click on the function button once and then the trunk or the key button here, it'll open up the menu to turn on valet mode. It'll also be, these are also used to kind of toggle between the menu on the screen itself, right? You would go down, up and down a list and enter. Pretty cool. One of the standout features of this system, in particular this remote, is that it's programmable and chargeable. If you look at the top here, there is a micro USB port that allows you to connect it to your computer and to program it to an existing iDatastart remote system. So great option if you lose one and you want to purchase a replacement without repurchasing the whole system. You can purchase the remote and reprogram that to an existing iDatastart remote system that's compatible. It can also be used to grab updates to new firmware, and of course charge it, which is important. So this is a rechargeable remote. You'll have to charge it from time to time, and you can see in here this is the micro USB cord that you would use to connect it to your charger or your computer. The other remote here is your secondary remote. This is the TR2450AE. This is a much more simplistic remote, more traditional. It has all the same buttons that the primary remote has. It's has the same range. It's also a two-way button, two-way remote. These little indicators down here will tell you if it's locked, unlocked, if the trunk is open, and so on. And like the other remote, these buttons can be used for a variety of functions. I read up to 30 different functions can be triggered with these 5 buttons. I highly recommend reading up on the manuals to get a full list of the various functions that these remotes can do. I'd be here for an hour if I read them off to you, but the manuals on iDatastart.com have a comprehensive list of all the functions that these remotes are capable of doing. This remote also isn't rechargeable, so you don't have to plug this one in. It's like your standard remotes with a replaceable battery under here. There's a screw, and then you can peel this back and replace it. Below the 2 remotes, you have your antenna. This is what the remotes will hook up to. So you'll mount this to your vehicle during the installation, and the remotes will connect to the brain via this antenna. And then below the antenna wire, below the antenna is the antenna wire. This wire will connect to the antenna and then to the brain down here itself. And speaking of the brain, down here, this is the HCX Remote Start Universal Control Module. This is the computer, the brains, whatever you want to call it. You'll take and connect all the various components from your wire harness along with the antenna and the hood pin here to this unit. And over here, related, is the quick start guide to the control module 2. It's worth mentioning that you will need to flash the firmware that's on the unit to whatever the recommended vehicle specific package is. iDatastart's website has a firmware tool called WebLink. Right, WebLink right here, that'll allow you to search and find your vehicle specific package that you'll load up, and then an app that'll allow you to actually upload it to the unit. This is a critical step that you'll take before installation. You can check out iDatastart's video on how to flash these units too. They have a YouTube video. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested. On the right bottom here, you have a hood pin. They include this for some vehicles that don't already have this sensor installed in your hood. Normally, this is only for older vehicles, but it's here if you need it and your vehicle doesn't have it. Also, a few owner's cards you see on the top and bottom here. These basically have information about the products and a QR code to find the manuals. And what I thought was pretty cool is iDatastart included, on the back here, they included the instruction manuals, but what I thought was cool is they also included screen protectors for the LCD remote here, 2 of them that will help to protect that screen from scratching. So that was nice to see. And then it has all the installation stuff like an alcohol pad, what you typically do for like your iPhone. So that was kind of cool. Then the final components here in this kit, the wiring, the kit comes with a universal wiring harness or harnesses. That's what you see here. This is what will allow you to install this kit, the brain, into any compatible vehicle yourself if you wanted to undertake that effort, find every single individual wire, and then wire them into your harness. For me, and probably for most professional installers as well, these are redundant and throwaway because you or I have vehicle specific T-harnesses. This does 90%, 99% of the wiring work for most vehicles. For me, in a plug and play fashion, and I'll pull these out and show you what I mean. So let me just clear some of this off. And then, again, this is the TL5. This is for a 2010 plus Toyota or Scion, and this will be going into a 2019 Toyota Tundra. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail about what each of these wires or harnesses are. You can see on the right hand side, these are various vehicle specific plugs. They will plug into the factory harness of the vehicle and then adapt all of those wires in this case, the Toyota Tundra's wire harness to an adaptable plug that goes into the various ports on the brain. So that's what this does. Now, they have instruction manuals online. This isn't necessarily a DIY project. If you don't know what you're doing, this can cause damage if you do some of this stuff wrong. So it's recommended that you find a professional installer. They do have instructions that will help you through it. And in this case, I think there's 3 or 4, apart from the plugs, there's about 3 or 4 places that I need to find and tap into via this harness. But you can see, compared to the harness, the universal harness that it comes with, this vehicle specific T harness is going to cut down 90 to 95% of all the wiring that I would have to do otherwise on this particular vehicle. So it makes it much more simple. So let me clear all this off. The last thing I just want to briefly show you is the Drone X1. Pull that out for you, show you what it looks like, and give you a couple of key features about that before I start to install this into the Toyota Tundra. So the last component of this setup is this Drone X1. This is the same manufacturer as the iDatastart. It's made by First Tech. And what this unit is going to do is enable some of those core functions of the iDatastart remote start, like lock, unlock, start, stop. and then expand on that, all from an app that's installed on my phone. So this drone unit hooks up into an LTE cellular provider like AT&T or whoever it is, and it enables you to control all of these functions of that remote start and more. I'll get into that. As long as you have two things. One, your cell phone is connected to the internet. That can be by Wi-Fi or just your service. And two, as long as this drone unit, this X1, has reception as well, you're going to be able to access and communicate to your car. So you'll see, and I'm going to open this up and show you what it looks like. It's very small. It has one piece of connectivity that I'm going to use, and that's because I already have a compatible iDatastart remote start kit. There's two ways to install this. You can install this alongside a remote start kit, or you can use it separately as a GPS module, and I'll get into that again in a moment. But this unit here literally has like a SIM card that an iPhone, if you slide this out, you can see there's a SIM card in here. So I've used this style module in a older truck of mine and really loved some of the functionality that it enables. I'm excited to see how this one works as well. Set this down. So in addition to those standard features that the remote start enables, like lock, unlock, remote start, obviously, this also doubles more of like a low jack unit. Since it's a GPS module, it'll enable things like GPS tracking, so you can track the location of the vehicle on a map on your phone at any point in time. It can set curfew alerts so that you can see if that vehicle was driven after the curfew hours that you set. Probably a feature for you teenage parents out there. Maintenance reminders. You can set up reminders to check the oil, rotate tires, or more based on mileage, and it uses GPS to calculate the mileage. Really cool. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more features. If you go on to the drone website and look at the features of the product, you'll see all of those listed out on their website. So by having this X1 in addition to the HC4.5 remote start, it really maximizes the features and combines GPS with all of the connectivity that's involved with that remote start installation. And makes it available directly from your phone wherever you're at. Only downside to this, there is a monthly paid service. So they give you a 30-day trial period, but then they require you to purchase a subscription. At the time of this review, plans start at $4 a month for just the basic remote start functionality. Lock, unlock, remote start, right? Very basics. All the way up to $40 a month to enable all of the GPS functionality that I just walked through. So just something to note. One last thing about this Drone X1 unit. During the programming and flashing process for the HC4.5, there will be an option for you to select whether or not you have a drone unit connected to the HC4.5 control module. So you'll want to enable that as a part of that process. And again, I will post that flashing directional video in my details below. It'll give you a walkthrough of how to go about programming and flashing this system as a whole. It might not necessarily call out that step where you check the box to enable a drone, but it'll give you that process, it'll give you that broader process. And I'll also post some of the details with screenshots on my written review on caraudionow.com. And here everything is. As a reminder, I'm using the TL5 T harness that's specific to Toyota vehicles 2010 and newer. So at least in newer at the time of this video. So that's what you're seeing connected right now. I've connected all of the harnesses from that TL5 T harness package up to the control module and so on. I've also set aside some of the stuff that I'm not going to use. I'll go through that. And what I've done here is I've leveraged the installation guide. You can find this document by entering your vehicle information, your year, make, model, trim at myfirsttech.idatalink.com/support. And they're going to have all of this type of wiring diagrams for the various kits that they support for all the various compatible vehicles. And at the top of this diagram, this wiring diagram, if you can see this wiring diagram that I've used is specific to that TL5 T-harness. So the information on this page is specific to the harness that I'm using. Now, as a part of this broader wiring diagram and installation guide, they also have a guide and a wiring diagram for the universal wiring and the harnesses that came straight out of the box with the HC4.5 that I showed you. So if you did want to use those without purchasing the T-harness, it's in this, and I printed all of this out. But on the left-hand side of this document, just to go through how I'm reading this and how you can read this, on the left-hand side of this document, this represents the control module right here. And the right-hand side represents all of the connections in the vehicle. These are the actual harnesses in the car, right along here. And in between are all the included adaptive wire harnesses with matching labels. So each of these harnesses are very well labeled. So what I did is I found each of the labeled harnesses that came in the box here, and I matched them up with the diagram and plugged everything in. It's pretty straightforward, and iDataLink gives a comprehensive look of the install and wiring all the way down to the color of the wire, and in some of these cases the pin configuration on each of the harnesses that you might have to tap into. They labeled where to tap also on this diagram, where to cut and bridge a wire, and so on. I see around 4 different places that I need to tap into the harness and individual wires on the Tundra harness. So there is still an element of wiring here. And again, I do recommend hiring a professional if you're not familiar with wiring, with programming these kind of things, just in general, not familiar with vehicle wiring. Definitely doable though if you're a DIYer, you have attention to detail, you're familiar with the wiring of your vehicle, and you can read high-level diagrams like this. I wouldn't say it's out of the realm, but it's not a beginner installation. I also liked that this wiring diagram gives you some highlights throughout, like up at the top here. It says to cut the loop, basically cut the loop on the module for an auto transmission. And for clarification, it also tells you that it tells you all of the harnesses that you won't be using. It lists out the harnesses that come with this kit. You can see over on the side here, I've set aside all these harnesses that I'm not going to be using, and all of those are actually listed here. They make it very easy to identify the harnesses and the irrelevant ones. So they typically give a number of additional harnesses because not every vehicle is identical, even if they are Toyota and so on. So some of those harnesses might be for another Toyota. They just won't be relevant to this vehicle. But that's all listed here in this highlight. And it also tells me down here, another connection is optional if you want to retain or have remote start on the OEM remotes. So it tells you to wire up or connect this in a certain way. And that's if you have those remotes, and 2, if this vehicle has tire pressure monitoring. So very thorough. I really like this diagram, and it gives me a lot of and any installer for that matter. This is the reference guide that anybody's going to use for installing in a vehicle. So let me set this down though. And on the table here, you can see all of the harnesses that are labeled. You've got VS1, right? MS3, MS5, all of these are labeled well. I mentioned this. And all I did, again, was match those labeled wires up to what was in the instructions. Now, I obviously did this all for demonstration purposes, but this does give me an idea of what I was going to use, what I'm not going to use. Now I know exactly how this is configured before I go to the vehicle and plug everything in, but obviously I'm going to pull all this apart before I start installing this in the car. All of these plugs here that you see, like the vehicle facing plugs, and what I mean by that is the ones that are going to go directly connected to this Tundra or any vehicle. All of these plugs here have, well, for one, these are Toyota specific. This is less Toyota specific. This is an OBD plug, but I think this is a better scenario here. This is a Toyota specific harness. So all I need to do, there's a male and a female. So there's a male and a female here. The male, well, let's start with the female. You're gonna unplug this particular harness from your vehicle, and then you're gonna plug that vehicle harness directly into here. And then you're gonna take the male and you're gonna replace what you did plug into here, you're gonna replace that. And it's basically just bypassing it, and everything goes through this control module here. But any area, and all of the areas that you need to tap into key like wiring components have that male female option, and it makes it very simple. This is the other scenario I showed you. These are the OBDs. So I'm going to plug the OBD into this one, and then I'm actually going to place this back into the OBD plug that's underneath the dash. So it makes it very easy. And the harnesses themselves, they automatically tap, well, I'll say automatically, but they're built to tap into all the wires that you need. Obviously, with the exception of some of these wires that I told you about, where I have to find a specific wire and either tap into it or bridge it, depending on what that install guide says. Two other things to note about what's on the table here. One, this baggie of little wires. These have what looks like vehicle specific wire clips. These will insert into the Tundra's factory plugs if you need to. I think this is mainly for the scenario where the wire doesn't exist in the plug, and I'll find out if I need to use these or not. But with these, I can just tap into, well, I can plug these into the harness based on what that install guide says, where the pin configuration and the number, the pin number that I'm going to tap into. I can just push this in, and then I can connect it to whatever downstream wiring that it calls for. So that's I think that's my assumption there. Two, though, you'll notice the Drone X1 here too. This will simply plug into the blue. This is a blue plug on the side of the control module, the M2 plug on the unit, and that's all you need to do with this. And then obviously down here you have the remote antenna wire. So that's pretty much it. This is everything that needs to go into the vehicle. The next thing I'm gonna do is get the vehicle ready in the garage and start to install this setup. So let's get to the garage. All right, we're out in the garage now, and here's the vehicle that this system is going to go into. It's a 2019 Toyota Tundra. This is the Platinum Edition, so it has all the bells and whistles. It has leather interior, with the heated and cooled seats, adaptive cruise control, the upgraded JBL system with the amplifier, with GPS, the backup camera, sunroof, and so on, but not remote start. So I'm going to dive on in and start to install everything, and I'm going to mention this again, but this video isn't really meant to be a how-to necessarily, but I'm going to go through my process, point out some of the key steps that I went through and my general thoughts about the difficulty and efficiency of the instructions and just the T-harness and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, and what I recommend doing for any install involving wiring on your car, is disconnect the battery. This is going to prevent damage to your ECU or blowing a fuse if you accidentally ground or arc something during the installation. So it's really the first thing that you're going to do for any wiring or installation on your vehicle. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove the negative terminal and set that aside. And now I'm going to begin removing the panels in the dash area here to scope out where the wire harnesses are that I need to tap into based on the T-harness wiring diagram that I showed you, which I have handy right here. You can see A, B, C, D. These line up with the wiring diagram. So I know I have to tap in behind and underneath the steering wheel here, down in the kick panel on the left panel. So you can see I'll end up removing this panel here and then this kick panel, and that should give me access to everything I need up under the steering column and obviously underneath the dash here to access. So let me go ahead and do that. And now I've removed all those panels that I was pointing to, in addition to the steering column here. So there is the ignition harness is right back up under here. It's right here. So I'll unplug this guy back here, and then I'm going to replace that with the one that comes with the harness. The other two areas that I'm going to be focused in on, well, let's say three. I've got the fuse box here. So there's a couple of taps in there that I need to focus on. I've got the kick panel here where there's a harness. And then I also have under here, you can see the OBD2. And that's going to be replaced with the OBD2 that is in our kit right here. So all of this is going to go up into the dash here. So I'm going to get going on wiring all that stuff up and replacing those plugs and harnesses, and then tapping into some of these wires as the wiring diagram calls to as well. So that's what I'm going to do here next. So let me show you what I've done here. I've taken that T-harness, I've hooked into the several locations under the steering column. This is the ignition. I hooked into the larger relay box here, and I also, you can see if you close up, I've tapped into the respective wires that the diagram calls for, cut and spliced all of the necessary wires on this harness. I'm going to plug that back in. You can see this is kind of a tangle. I haven't secured any of the wires yet. And then down here, if you follow down to the kick panel, I've also located the one wire in the kick panel harness and plugged that I tapped into. I've also wired and mounted up the drone unit right to the left here, and I chose the location for the HCX control module. I actually mounted it to what looks like the existing alarm control unit that's right here. So I zip tied and double-sided taped that. And then the last thing that I did that's worth mentioning, if you follow this column up, I'll take a step back here. This is the antenna wire, and this antenna wire is again what those remotes hooked up to. I think I mentioned I was going to place it in the top left corner of this A-pillar, but what I ended up doing is wiring it through the top of the headliner, and I'm going to place it right here, and I think that that's going to be the ideal place for this remote antenna here. So next thing I'm actually going to do, I'm going to plug the battery back in up there. I'm going to turn everything on, make sure everything works before I tidy up everything, clean it up, and put the panels back on. I'm going to go ahead and do that, get through the programming steps too that the installation guide walks through. It's the various steps of programming this thing initially once you turn it on for the first time, and then I'll give you a look at how this works, what the remote looks like, and what I think about it. All right, everything's wired up, so I'm going to give it a test. I've got it programmed, so I'm going to show you a couple of the high-level features on this remote here, starting with the lock and the unlock. So if once you click and engage with the remote, it's going to immediately turn the screen on, and now you can see it went from lock unlock to lock, and it's indicated by the top left. Goes into standby after that. Same with if you did the unlock, right? And you can hear behind me the truck actually unlocked, and now it's indicated that it's unlocked. Now let's say you wanted to see just general information about your car. Is your car locked or unlocked? You're going to click on the information button on the bottom right, the key button, and then it shows you a number of things, including like signal. It shows locked, unlocked. It shows whether or not your battery is charged right. I'll do it again and show you. It shows voltage. Shows you whether the doors are open or closed. I can show you that too. It indicates that the doors actually turn open up on the screen. And then of course, finally, let's say you wanted to start the car. You're going to click and hold the key button on the bottom right. Couple seconds. Remote start. You can see it acknowledged it. And behind me, you can see the truck started. And I go back. Now it shows that it's running on the top, and it shows you how long it's going to be running for. Now let me turn it off. And there you go. Now let's also throw in the secondary remote just into the mix to give you a look at it. this obviously, and we went through this, lock, unlock, trunk. The truck doesn't have a separate trunk, you know, lock or unlock, so that really doesn't, it serves no purpose for this particular truck, but for other vehicles it obviously would. And then on the bottom, again, you have the remote start. Let's try this on this, and I want to demonstrate kind of what the two-way system means on this particular remote. So if I click and hold this button to start the vehicle, similar to the other remote, you can hear it starts up behind me, and then you can see there it acknowledges that the vehicle has started. So that's really the extent of two-way with this remote. It tells you if and acknowledges that the signal that you sent was, you know, actually happened and was acknowledged by the vehicle. So let's go ahead and turn it back off. And again, this is probably what you're going to use as your spare remote, but it does have the same range and really the same high-level functionality that the primary remote does, with the exception of all the vehicle details that the screen shows up. So pretty nice. Finally here, the last thing I just wanted to quickly demonstrate for you is the drone app. So I installed the Drone X1, I connected it and enabled it, and now you can see I'm in the home screen here, and you've got all the high-level functionality information about the vehicle. You've got the high-level controls, lock, unlock, and you can start and stop it. You can see on the map where it is. You can add drivers. So if your wife wanted to have this app, or your friend on their phone, you could also add them. They could download the app and actually access your vehicle, and you can share access. You have other high-level information like the battery and the voltage. So you can tell if your vehicle has a dead battery just from your phone. And then general status and just general information about the vehicle, whether the alarm is going off, the doors, trunk, hood, right? They're closed right now. And then a really nice one too, an added feature here, was the temperature. You can see the temperature inside the vehicle, which I thought was pretty nice. Other system information, and I talked about maintenance. You can set maintenance windows. So it uses GPS just to gauge mileage that you've put on the vehicle, and it'll remind you to service the vehicle, change the oil, and then the different interval. Down at the bottom, you can see it will go into like the more detailed views of each of the components here, and one of which being the maps. You can see exactly where it's located. Your vehicle is located on a map, and then you have the controls. And now anything that you do on these remotes is actually going to alert you on the app too. So if you use this remote start to start the vehicle, if you have the alert set up, you'll be notified. And all of the other information about the vehicle too, like if the door opens or closes, you can go in and set those alerts. And then activity, kind of cool. You can see the various activity and the feed of activity that the vehicle has gone through, and set up alerts, trips, kind of high level here, but has a lot of functionality built into the app and expands on the remote start system in general, and adds GPS to it. And then all of the settings in the app, and where you would go and set geofencing and alerts and preferences and so on and so forth. And you know, just to demonstrate this real quick for you, I'm going to go up to the home, and then I'm going to click on the unlock. Let's just try unlock, and you'll hear behind me the vehicle, and you know, it'll be notified on your other two-way remote here that I unlocked the vehicle. Let's go ahead and do lock. Boom, vehicle's locked. You're also notified. So it's really cool. The vehicle is communicating with these remotes and the app. And then finally, I'm going to try to start and stop it. I'm going to click and hold. It acknowledges it, and now the vehicle is going to start behind me. And you can see the notification, and then you can go into any of these other remotes, for example, and stop it. So super cool. And again, it notifies you on the app, even though I engaged with this. So really cool features. Okay, so wrapping up, My experience with this system has been overwhelmingly positive so far. The installation process was very well documented from iDatastart, making it great for professional installers and DIYers alike. The T-harness, in my opinion, is a necessity though, and really simplifies this installation. I'd consider this an intermediate install that does require knowledge of your vehicle's wire harnesses, just in general experience with a 12-volt system and the systems in a car, and high-level programming too, both in the car and on your computer. This installation took me about 4 to 5 hours from start to finish, although I was definitely taking my time. I love the LCD remote and the information that it displayed. Love the fact that the secondary remote was also a two-way remote and had the same range. The range on these things are fantastic, but I think what really rounded this system out for me was the Drone X1. Everything that you need and more can be handled directly in the app instead of on the remote. I compare this to my 2021 F-150's Ford app or my wife's Toyota app that came from the factory, where I can access all the vehicle location data directly, the vehicle and location information directly from the app itself, and I can control, I can do things like lock, unlock, and start the vehicle. I think the HC4.5 and Drone X1 are the aftermarket version of these, modern systems in these cars, and they integrate super well together to create that modern alarm and remote start system. There's a subscription for that service, but ADS did a nice job at carving out subscription plans based on the features that you're interested in, starting around $4 for the basic lock, unlock, and remote start capability. All in all, myself and the owner of this vehicle have loved the product so far. That's all I had for you. Thanks for watching. If you like this review and installation, do us a favor and subscribe. That's the best way you can thank us for putting this video together. We put a lot of time and effort into these videos, and it's our subscribers that help us come back with more content. So I'll see you next time.